Hey y'all, it's Michael, and these are the books that I read for BoutofBooks 17. Forgot what number I'm on. The first book that I listened to was The String Diaries by Stephen Lloyd Jones, narrated by Gemma Whelan. This was the first book that I started with. It was really long. This is a book that's really hard to talk about because it will give a lot away, so I'm going to try to not give that much away. We have these creatures called Hasu Ilatek. They're basically like shapeshifters. They can turn into anyone and anything, and they also can heal. They have like basically supernatural powers type of thing. This book switches time periods and it switches places. One of the places actually is Oxford in England, which I was really excited about because I went to Oxford. I've stayed in Oxford before, and the parts where they mention like the landmarks, I was so excited because I actually knew where they were. I knew how they looked, so that part was really cool. This book tried to juggle too much, and in the end, the balls were falling because it's trying to juggle all of these different elements. So it has this love story, this tragic love story. It has this thrilling chase that's going on. It has these supernatural elements, and you think that all of these things combined, it's done well in other stories before, but here I don't think it gelled as well as it could have had. If you've read enough thrillers or like mysteries, you kind of know what's gonna happen. There are obvious things in the way that things are told, because you know good and well, if you're smart enough, which we all are, you can tell what's going to happen soon. Like, you can tell because things are too obvious. It's really obvious, even for the people that don't read as like a lot of mysteries where you're paying so much attention, like an Agatha Christie book, when you know there's so many red herrings, you're paying so that you're like trying to pinpoint the dots. Here, it's obvious what is important. It's not, is this important? It's more of a question. I kind of know it is. So, I gave it 2 stars out of 5. I don't think it was my favorite. Narrator wise, I do have to mention this. Don't read this. Don't listen to this on audiobook because the narration was really weird. The narrator kept making these like these smacking noises, and it really knocked me out of the experience, because usually when I'm listening to audiobooks, I listen to most of it at work, in case you don't know, and when I'm listening to it, I'm like so in the zone. I'm like literally in the zone. I'm doing my job and I'm literally in the zone listening. All the time she kept making these smacking noises. It really got me out of the experience. And then there were these weird pauses that just was so bizarre. So I would recommend, if you were wanting to read this, I wouldn't recommend the audiobook. I would just do a physical book. So there's that. The next story is What I Saw and How I Lied by Judy Blundell, narrated by Caitlin Greer. When I finish a story, I write down my initial thoughts. I don't know, you can't see it, but the first thing I wrote on here is underwhelming in huge capital letters. I was really excited to listen to this because I was like, oh my god, I won a National Book Award. And usually National Book Award winners, especially the teen category, they had some really good choices in the past few years. I was like, wow, these even the ones that are just nominated are really great. Their choices are really great. I was excited to listen to this, and it felt really flat. This is a book that I was so underwhelmed. I was like, what? This book is about Evie, and it takes place a little bit after World War II. Soldiers are literally coming home. So it takes place within that. And we follow Evie as she goes on a vacation with her stepdad and her mom. And then we meet someone who she finds attractive. And that's basically it. First off, I thought this was a time period. So I was thinking like, I'm gonna get like that sense of the time period after World War II. This didn't have that feeling to it for some reason for me. If you wrote this like in 21st century, it would have been fine. The only things that they did was smoke a lot, and they had the dialogue was reminiscent of that time. But other than that, it was time period wise, I didn't it didn't convey it to me. Yeah, and then the story the story for me just is all over the place. There's this tragic love story that turns into something else, and then it's like these all of these lies converge together. But I just think it didn't work out. I didn't quite enjoy this. And this is one of those books where the story, it's obvious what's going to happen next. It was almost as if a beat per beat of what would happen in a novel, and it followed that beat per beat really precisely. It almost followed it too much. So yeah, I gave it 2 stars out of 5. The next book was A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. I physically read that, and I did another video on it. I'll link it right here. So yeah, the next one that I listened to is Sputnik Sweetheart by Haruki Murakami, translated by Philip Gabriel, narrated by Adam Sims. I wanted to listen to another Murakami just because, in case you don't know, Murakami books are really easy to listen to in audiobook, and that's just the way that that's just because of the Japanese language. When you study the Japanese language, it's really simplistic compared to like English. They don't use a lot of fluffy words, I guess you could say. Listening to it translated in English is really easy, so that's why I really enjoyed listening to his audiobooks. This book, out of all the Murakami books that I listened to and read, this is probably my least favorite. Next to the oh god, it's a long time. It's next to the hard-boiled egg in the End of the World Wonderland, that one. Yeah, I did not like Sputnik Sweetheart. First off, I think it's because I've experienced a lot of Murakami, so in my opinion, this isn't his finest works. It doesn't have all of the Murakami-esque things that I really enjoyed it compared to his other novels. So yeah, but story-wise, oh my god, there are flies everywhere. This book is about Sumire and her friend Kay. She's in love with her boss Miju, and basically now I'm not gonna lie, this does have things that makes it Murakami. So basically, someone goes missing. We have a male protagonist that is aloof, that's wide-eyed. We have things going on that have no explanation. Typical Murakami stuff. The thing though is this story is not magical enough. There's only a few magical parts to it, and it kind of fell flat for me. I could see why people would enjoy this because if this was your first Murakami, it's a really nice introduction because it's not too weird. And I really enjoyed Murakami books because they are so weird. They're so out there. They're just so bizarre, and I just really enjoyed that. But this wasn't. This just was. And there are a few magical realism things, but it just wasn't enough. I mean, it had jazz, cats, all of that other stuff, but it just. And I felt really weird about some of the comments because, so again, we have a male narrator here. This would be a really interesting book to talk about with Murakami and how he treats women, because again, that's like a common theme within his novels of how women is portrayed. So yeah, I gave it 2 stars out of 5. The next book is Forgive Me, Leonard Peacock by Matthew Quick, narrated by Noah Galvin. Yeah, so this book was really interesting. At the end of it, I didn't know how I felt about it exactly. Yeah, this book is about Leonard Peacock. This takes place within a day, and he basically has plans to go shoot his friend and then commit suicide afterwards. But before that, he wants to visit important people in his life and just, say goodbye. And then we follow him throughout this day as he goes through saying his goodbyes, and he's wanting to execute his plan. This book was really weird because, first off, Leonard Peacock is an unlikable character, and so he's really unlikable. Like, he says things that I was like, okay. He would be that type. He's the type of person that's he really questions the world. He's also like an outsider in a way that he doesn't understand why people do things they do. Like, he doesn't have a Facebook. Like, he doesn't get social media. He would if like he would be the type of person that question why was everyone playing Pokemon Go. Like, that's such a thing. That type, like, kind of like that. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I understand. I get it. I understood him as a character. Well, myself was a teenager before, way back when, his age, and I remember a lot of the same feelings that he felt. I remember feeling angry at the world. I remember thinking to myself, no one understands me. I know how it feels. I got it. I get him as a character, and I think that's what Matthew Quick does really well, is that by the end, someone's getting arrested. By the end of this book, I knew who Leonard Peacock was. I can tell you who he is. I see a lot of myself in him, and so I understand a lot of why he's doing it, and just the reasons. I feel I understand why he's like quiet. It's like I understood. I get it. I get him. I got him. The thing though is, I think this book is really weird because the way it's laid out and presented, how the choices that the author makes, it also made me feel at the same time, while understanding him, it made me feel this disconnect, this barrier between me and this character. And so when a lot of the times that he would make comments and the choices that he would make, I found myself being like it had this disconnect, and it made me not like him. And I don't know if that's because I see myself too much in him, and so there's this, maybe in my head I'm thinking that there's these characteristics that I see in him that I myself, as a teenager before, that I personally was not proud of. But I didn't get that I don't know if the word connection is correct, because at the end of this book, usually when I have a connection with a character in a book, or with a book in general, I have a connection. I have that feeling of I understand where this book is coming from. I understand where the author is saying, that all of that. I tend to really love it. But here, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy this book. I ended up giving it 2.5 out of 5. And I don't know what it is. It might be this emotional disconnect that I have with Leonard Peacock. I don't really know what it is, to be honest with you. I think this would make a great topic. This video is already long, but I think this would make a great topic of a book that is. I think this book is important, but does an important novel necessarily mean a great structured, great writing type of novel? I don't know. I think this book is like, that's what's ringing in my head, is that if I would have read this as a teenager, I would have loved it. But then as an adult reading it again, I would have been like, it's so angsty. That also brings me back to similar books like that. Perfect example, my favorite book of all time ever is Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. When I read that as a teenager, I was blown away. I felt like here was a character that I could, like, someone got me. Like, an author, a person understood this point in my life or was going through. And then, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, I reread the book again. And I still felt it. I was like, wow, Holden is me. Like, I got it. And here with Leonard Peacock, it felt, something about it was that I didn't get that feeling as I did with Holden. something about it. But yeah, I ended up giving it 2.5 out of 5. The last book that I physically read is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. I'll do a separate video on that because it's part of the Lemonade syllabus, so I'm almost done with another book, The Street by Ann Petrie, and I'll combine those two books together and give you my thoughts about them. So yes, if you read any of those books, let me know, or if you did the Bout of Books readathon, let me know. I would love to check out your video. Until then, I'll see you guys till later. Bye!